Hi everyone, welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. And that's it. It's over. Put your passport back in the top drawer. Europe is no more. Newcastle United are not going to Europe thanks to Manchester United's shock victory against Manchester City in today's FA Cup final, beating them 2-1. Unbelievable, really. None of us saw that result coming. We thought Man City would steamroll them. Fair play to Manchester United. They proved everybody wrong, even though they're not a very good side. But what does it mean for Newcastle United, and how do I feel about the changes that makes to the end of our season, and you know, whether it's classed as a success or failure? So we'll get into that in a second. But what annoys me here about Manchester United is that they are the worst Manchester United team I've seen in my generation. I've never known a Manchester United side so piss poor. I really haven't. You know, where an 18, 19-year-old boy is your best player hands down. But they've been awful all season. They showed up for one game against a Manchester City team who just looked like they were finished for the season. They looked like they were on the beach. They looked like they couldn't be arsed. You know, they were happy just to go away for a little break before Euro 24 or Copa America or whatever it is they're going to play in. And it totally showed, the Manchester United wanted the ball more. They were first in the tackle. They were quicker. They were, they had more intensity about them. Haaland looked awful, looked like a pub team player. Phil Foden couldn't get into the game. De Bruyne looked like he was playing in his fucking jeans. It just looked awful. It was awful altogether, really. And not the kind of thing Pep Guardiola probably wants out of his players, but they just looked like they couldn't be bothered. That they're going to go back with Doku, who I think is a good player, but they just look really, really poor. And Manchester United went on to win, and they then get the Europa League spot, which knocks Chelsea into the conference, which knocks Newcastle out of Europe altogether, which is really, really disappointing. And the impact really for the season for me is this. I mean, I did a review where I said I thought seventh was okay. It was good. It was, it was acceptable, I suppose, in terms of an all right season, given all the mitigating circumstances, the injuries, Tonali suspension, groups of death, too many games, all that type of stuff. Finishing seventh and getting Europa Conference football was good. It was really good. But to finish seventh now and not get Europe, which I think is the first time in 10 years, it just leaves a really bad taste in the mouth. And I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed, as your parents would probably say to you. I'm just disappointed. I just feel like Newcastle United did enough to get a European position at the end of the season. But the daft thing was that you're always going to leave it in the lap of the gods if you're relying on other teams to do the job that you couldn't do. And that might sound harsh, but that's the truth. Newcastle really should have sewed up sixth in the last four games, and they didn't do it. They blew it. They had a crap draw against Brighton, an awful result against this mediocre Manchester United team, and they battered Brentford. And at that point, it was too little too late, really. This FA Cup final was going to happen. We'd finish seventh and beat Man United to seventh, even though we were joint on points with that awful side, because our goal difference was far superior, thanks to you, Sheffield United, mainly. But it's disappointing to feel that we were relying on somebody else to keep us in Europe, where we should have really done that ourselves. And as much as them four games, I think, you can point to and question the players' mentality. I think even though the injuries were still there, the players were coming back from fitness. You've got to question the players' mentality. Some of the managers' selection policies, you have to, certainly Martin Dubravka in goal, who's made a tracing paper. But rewind a little bit, before we get to the last four games. Newcastle failed to beat Luton, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth this season. And that's why we're not sixth. That's why we haven't got Europe. It's because of poor performances against pretty average teams that are plucky and will put up a fight. But we were awful against them. Terrible. Huge issues there, huge problems there. Dan Burn at left back, this weird experiment that Eddie Howe seemed to persist with while Lewis Hall was in cryostasis, learning how to defend. Obviously it worked as you come back and look really, really good. But, things like that, decisions like that have cost us really. Yes, the injuries have cost us. You lose Nick Pope and Joe Linton for huge swathes of the season. Joe Willock, what he brings, Isak in and out. Wilson obviously injured again perpetually, but it's not like you didn't know that was coming. That's like living in Cumbria and not having a brolly because it rains all the fucking time and moaning you get wet. So there is some issues there the club haven't really looked at in foresight, I think, in hindsight. Too many average players that were kept onto in the squad because of sentimental value. Miggy Almiron, Richie, Dummett, players like that. I mean, the fact that Matt Ritchie's still in our match day squad and is getting game time and has had game time this season is pretty rancid. in all fairness. Now, Europe might have a positive impact on getting rid of deadwood players like them, because there was talk, and Eddie was talking about new contracts for both them and Richie, and everybody was saying it was the homegrown quota side for Europe and everything else. Now there's no Europe, that might not be the case. So these players might be sent packing. And do you know what? They need to be sent packing. That doesn't mean they've been bad Newcastle United players. Contrary to that, they've been good Newcastle United players, very good Newcastle United players in their careers. But their time is done. We cannot progress as a football club with players in our squad who are with us in the Championship, in the Mike Ashley era, playing under Pardew, some of them, and Rafa and Bruce and Houghton. It just can't happen. We have to move on from that. We have to evolve as a football club. PSR and FFP aside, we have to do it. You look at the transfer market, we could be bringing in two free agents in Tossin and Kelly, who improve the defensive squad quite considerably, and they're both free transfers. So there needs to be growth in the squad this summer. We have to have a better depth of squad in case injuries come next season like they did this season. Now, I don't think it'll be as freak occurrences. The kind of injury we had this season were ridiculous because they're all huge, long injuries. Now, that is an internal investigation, obviously needs to happen with the medical team, the recovery processes, maybe the way Eddie works the players. Is something going wrong in that regard? Are these players not robust enough for Eddie Howe and his style of football? So that needs to be looked into potentially as well. But I just think that the squad in general, we have a good starting 11 when everybody's fit, and outside of probably 13 to 14 players, so you're talking about 11 positions, they're pretty average. There is some good squad players in there. Me and Mark are rating the squad right now. Check the defender one out, that'll be out very soon. And then we'll go to the midfielders and strikers too. And we'll let you know what we think about those players and whether we should keep them or sell them. But there is some massive improvement that needs to be made in this squad. But I think the biggest thing, never mind ability, it's mentality. We have to have the right mentality in this squad. And that comes with experience for younger players. I'm not going to dig at Elliot Anderson and Miley and players like that because they're still learning the game. But, seasoned professionals who are in their 29s and 30s, like Miggy Almiron, Callum Wilson, players like that, Dan Burn, Trippier, the winning mentality has to come from players, internally. We had that when we finished fourth. We had this never say die attitude. The intensity was there. It was our identity. But the mentality has drifted away this season. We've been too powder puff, too open against, these promoted sides like Luton, Bournemouth, Forest. I remember Gibbs White walking through us like a knife through. But we go to Manchester United, where everything's going against them. Literally, the roof is caving in against them, and we just don't turn up. It's another copy and paste of the Carabao Cup final. We're just dreadful. Cup games as well. Like Kieran Trippier losing his concentration against Chelsea, costing us potentially the Carabao Cup as well this season. So there's been loads of worrying things there in terms of the mentality of the players. That needs to massively improve, not just the ability. And I really hope the club does that this summer. Now, I don't know whether No Europe changes the transfer plans. I doubt it would do. I don't think Eddie Howe and the recruitment team would leave that a chance. That we were still a 90-minute football game away for guaranteeing we had European football. Now, most of the bookies would have paid out on Manchester City and never saw that coming. But I don't think Eddie Howe is like that, or the board can be like that, because you just don't know whether we were going to get Europe. So hopefully the players that we have talked about, lined up, engage with, no European football isn't an issue for them. You look at the goalkeeper, Mamardashvili. Yes, he maybe will go to other teams and get European football, but if he stays at Valencia, they're not in Europe either. So there could be players like that we're targeting and bringing in, likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Trippier all came when we were relegation fodder. Sven Botman came when there's no European football either. So if we get the scouting right and we make the right offer to these players, we could still bring in some real quality players to improve that squad. And it needs improvement. It really, really does. But there's never been a better time to break into the top 6, top 4 as a mainstay. And that's what frustrates me even more, because I've never known a Manchester United side so bad as this one. I've never known a Chelsea side so, in disarray in terms of the merry-go-round of management, the players coming and going like somebody's got a cheat code at Football Manager. Spurs lost their greatest ever player, arguably their top goal scorer, no doubt. Liverpool have lost Klopp now. So there is opportunity in that top 4 to 6 Premier League position to really get under the duvet and make yourself comfortable. And I feel like Newcastle were making great momentum, certainly last season, finishing 4th. And yes, you could say we were 4 steps ahead of the game, and this 7th feels like a step back. And it is a step back, because whether you like it or not, football is all about momentum. You have to either equal or better what you did the season before for a season to really be deemed as a success. Yes, you can have a bit of pragmatism and realism, but that doesn't really exist in the world of football. Really, it's too swallowed up by passion and ambition. Really, so the fact that Newcastle finished in the top four, probably put a little bit of pressure on them to finish in the top six. But if you look at the injuries and the ifs and buts and the coconuts, we might have been fifth or fourth, possibly where Villa are. And then if we were able to retain that Champions League space, of course you would say that's success. But, finishing seventh compared to where Newcastle were finishing in years prior is a success. But based on last season, it's a step backwards, and that's just a fact. And anyone who says that shouldn't be vilified or attacked for it. It's just a factual statement. If you finish in the top four the season before, and then you don't finish in the top four the season after, people don't deem that as a successful season because last season was better, and you want to be better than you were last season. You want to bring in better players. You want to play nicer football, you want to score more goals, concede less goals, you want to win trophies. Every season is a chance to reset and do better. And if you don't do as well as you did the season before, then you don't really deem it as a success. Is it a failure? That's maybe a little bit kind of extreme in terms of the comparison. It's probably somewhere in the grey, it's in the middle. So it's not a success or a failure. Yes, Newcastle flew out the traps, as I said, and really accelerated this plan. And you can talk about PSR and FFP restraints and else, but all clubs have that. It isn't just us, and we are, obviously, the revenue-wise, we're nowhere near the likes of Spurs and people like that, thanks to, the old thrifty twat that was Mike Ashley over the years. But we can't look back to the Ashley era, and blame it in too many ways. Yes, it certainly is responsible for it, but, we can't suddenly go back and pretend that we're in the Ashley era and say seventh is a success because we're used to finishing 14th and 15th, because we're not in the Ashley era anymore. We're in the PIF era. And our aspirations and goals should be higher than that. And we should be a bit disappointed that we didn't finish in the top six or top five and get Europa League football because it was in our hands. I'm not saying get rid of the manager before anybody jumps in the comments and start giving me shit. The manager's made mistakes this season. He's a young manager. He needs to learn from them. And I really hope he does. And I feel that he will. And he will get the chance to put this right next season. But all these people who don't prescribe to Eddie Howe being under pressure is bullshit. All managers are under pressure, especially Eddie Howe. Go listen to his interviews at the Overlap and with, Jake Humphries, and he tells you he knows he's under pressure. But this summer is a big summer for Newcastle United. We have to rebuild this squad. No European football might be a good opportunity to get rid of some of this deadwood. You don't have to worry about this homegrown rule. You can move players like Richie and dumb it on. Get people like Hendrick off your book, Fraser, all these kind of deadweight players, and replace them with better players. And then if you do have injuries or you have to navigate the squad with cup draws and domestic football, you're able to do it. I think no European football potentially will take the strain off our squad in terms of fatigue and injuries next season. But you just never know, do you, with the way the Premier League goes. But, there's a big chance to really break into that top four again next season with the changes to Liverpool, with the issues of Manchester United, with Chelsea and everything else the way they are, with Spurs the way they are. And I really think Newcastle United have to invest well in this summer and take that opportunity, because Aston Villa are going to be trying to do it as well, but their PSR and FFP ceiling is even lower than ours. So we could very well get ahead of them in terms of better players, and they have to navigate Champions League as well, so that will take a toll on their squad. But yeah, my closing thought on this whole thing is I'm just disappointed really that finishing seventh doesn't get us European football. It's no different league position, but it just feels like a little bit of after the Lord Mayor's show in terms of we all got excited singing Europe again, thinking City would do the business. They didn't do it. Manchester United fluked their way into Europa League position once again, and we're left feeling a little bit jaded, a little bit disenchanted, a little bit robbed, really. But let us know in the comments below what you think about this bad news today and how you think it makes the season look. Success, failure, or somewhere in the grey. Does it mean that we can get rid of the deadwood? If so, who would you get rid of? Let us know in the comments below. We'd like to hear from you. Smash a comment in. If you like what you see, subscribe, like the video, help the channel grow. We'll be back with loads more content soon. We've got Rate the Squad, Rumour Has It videos, plenty to get stuck into it evermore. So keep tuned, guys. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Have a cracking weekend, and we'll see you later. Cheers.